So last week, something so unexpected and interesting happened that I've decided to revive this channel from its retirement. And it has to do with OpenAI, the most prominent AI company in the world responsible for developing ChatGPT. Well, on Friday, November 17th, the board of directors of OpenAI, seemingly out of nowhere, decided to fire the company's CEO, Sam Altman. Then a whole lot of drama ensued, and just 5 days later, Sam Altman was rehired as CEO, and the old board of directors was eliminated. I'm making this video to give a fairly detailed play-by-play of what went down last week, and more importantly, to examine what this might mean for the future of AI development at OpenAI and at large. And I think it is really important for people to know this stuff. AI is almost certainly going to be the most influential technology of our generation, and OpenAI is, for now at least, the most influential company in the AI space. So the things that go on behind closed doors at OpenAI could very well end up having a tremendous influence over all of our lives. In particular, later in this video, I'll talk about how the leadership shakeup at OpenAI seems to have morphed the organization into a less safety-minded company than it was before. I also just want to talk about this because it's super interesting. I mean, firing your CEO and then him marching back in and reverse firing you 5 days later was a really wild thing to see play out last week. People were comparing it to Game of Thrones, to Silicon Valley, and of course to Succession.
You tried to kill me, but you failed, and you're dead. Now, f*** off.
So with all this drama in an area that feels so up my alley, obviously I wanted to make a video on it. And there will be a table of contents in the description if you want to jump to the areas that seem most relevant to you. So let's start with just a bit of background on what OpenAI is. OpenAI is an artificial intelligence research and deployment company. It was founded in 2015 as a nonprofit, but it did add a for-profit branch of the company in 2019. Reading directly from its charter, OpenAI's mission is to ensure that artificial general intelligence, or AGI, by which we mean highly autonomous systems that outperform humans at most economically valuable work, benefits all of humanity. So while other companies are trying to develop more limited AI tools, OpenAI is trying to go all the way. They're going for AGI, or AI that can do pretty much anything that a human mind can do, and then get better at it. OpenAI hasn't produced AGI yet. It has produced ChatGPT, a free-to-use AI chatbot that, in response to user prompts, can write poems and essays and solve logic puzzles and help you write code. And there's GPT-4, the next-generation paid version, which can do the same stuff even better and analyze images. Plus, there's DALL-E, which can generate images. Personally, I recommend messing around with ChatGPT, or GPT-4 if you have $20 lying around, until you get a sense for what it can and can't do. And I think you're likely to get a feeling that, yeah, we're definitely not at AGI yet, but it might not be that far off, especially with how fast things have been moving in AI. And that feeling that AGI could be coming soon is exciting or scary or both, depending on who you ask. And the tension between people who are mostly excited and mostly scared may have been one of the driving forces behind OpenAI's drama last week. So let's get into that drama. Here's how things stood at OpenAI as of the morning of Friday, November 17th. The company had roughly 770 employees and just 6 board members. Those members were Sam Altman, CEO and co-founder of OpenAI, Greg Brockman, president of OpenAI and another co-founder, Ilya Sutskever, chief scientist of OpenAI and yet another co-founder, and then 3 others who were more independent from the day-to-day operations of the company. Helen Toner, a researcher in AI safety and governance, Tasha McCauley, a tech entrepreneur, and Adam D'Angelo, a co-founder and CEO of the question and answer site Quora. Since he's the key power player here, let's dive a bit deeper into the bio of Sam Altman. Sam is 38 years old. He's gay, Jewish, and Midwestern, which is a pretty unique combination. His first tech venture was developing a location sharing service when he was 19, and he reportedly worked so hard on it that he got scurvy. He then started working at Y Combinator in 2011, which is the famous startup accelerator that helped launch platforms like Airbnb, DoorDash, and Twitch. And by 2014, just 3 years later, Sam was named Y Combinator's president. He co-founded OpenAI in 2015 with Greg, Ilya, and a number of other people, including Elon Musk, who later left and who is now widely speculated to be super jealous of OpenAI's success. Sam has been integral to OpenAI's fundraising efforts. Thanks in large part to his influence, Microsoft has now invested over $13 billion in OpenAI. In interviews, Sam comes across to me as a pretty likable guy, and people who have worked with him have noted just how good he is at persuasion. And the fact that he was seemingly able to outmaneuver the board that fired him certainly speaks to that persuasive ability. So to see how that all played out, let's get back into the drama. According to a timeline posted by Greg Brockman on Twitter, Sam received a text from Ilya asking to talk at noon on Friday, November 17th. Sam joined a Google Meet where the 4 other board members, besides Greg, told him he was being fired. 20 minutes later, Greg was called into a meeting where he was told he was being removed from the board but not fired, but following this news, Greg chose to resign altogether. Sam was replaced with Mira Murati, the company's chief technology officer, as interim CEO. So why did 4 of the 6 board members decide to oust Sam Altman? Well, an announcement posted shortly after Sam's firing said this: Mr. Altman's departure follows a deliberative review process by the board, which concluded that he was not consistently candid in his communications with the board, hindering its ability to exercise its responsibilities. The board no longer has confidence in his ability to continue leading OpenAI. That's pretty vague, and that's pretty much all we get. At no point in the drama of last week did Ilya, Helen, Tasha, or Adam come forward and publicly elaborate on what exactly Sam did to make them choose to fire him. After Friday's firing, there isn't a whole lot of news over the weekend, but on Monday, November 20th, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella tweets that he is extremely excited to share the news that Sam Altman and Greg Brockman, together with colleagues, will be joining Microsoft to lead a new advanced AI research team, which Sam quote tweets saying, "The mission continues." The story could have ended there, but the same day, a letter leaked in which over 500 OpenAI employees threatened to resign from OpenAI and join the newly announced Microsoft subsidiary run by Sam Altman and Greg Brockman. The letter states that the board has been unable to provide written evidence supporting its reasons for firing Sam Altman and demands that all current board members resign and reinstate Sam Altman and Greg Brockman. The first signatory is Mira Murati, who at this point has also been replaced as OpenAI's CEO by Emmett Shear, the co-founder of the video streaming website Twitch. That's how things stood as of Monday. Now, it's unclear whether Sam had such a dedicated following at OpenAI that the employees would have been willing to walk out with him regardless of why he was fired, but that seems pretty unlikely. Instead, it seems like many OpenAI employees were outraged by the board's failure to explicitly justify why they ousted Sam. So, without clarification from the board regarding Sam's firing, all we're left with is informed speculation about their motives. And there's been a lot of it online. The dominant theory is that the board members turned on Sam because they thought he was insufficiently dedicated to AI safety, that he was moving too fast, pushing to commercialize OpenAI and constantly release newer and better products, and overall prioritizing rapid developments in AI capabilities without equivalent advances in AI safety research. I think there are many things that are compelling about this theory, that it is about safety, and some things that are not, which I'll also get into. But regardless, I do think it's worth digging deeper into this notion of AI progress versus AI safety, because even if this wasn't the dominant reason behind the schism at OpenAI, it does seem to be a broader debate that's playing out in the AI community at large. So I think it's important for everyone to know the arguments. I'll start by saying that most people who work in AI expect AI to be a fundamentally world-altering technology. Hopefully in a good way, but very possibly in a bad way. Hence why so many AI researchers signed that one-sentence open letter earlier this year. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority, alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. Hey look, it's Sam Altman. And if you look at AI capabilities now, the rate at which those capabilities are advancing, and then extend that out some years, it really does feel difficult to imagine areas of life that aren't going to be influenced by AI in some way. So if the arguments that I'm about to discuss sound dramatic, that's why. Before getting into AI safety, let's consider the arguments for AI progress. Why even develop AI in the first place? Well, if a company like OpenAI is able to develop an AGI, that is an AI that's at roughly human levels of intelligence, then its intelligence level obviously isn't going to just stop there. Soon, with more development from human programmers, or from the AI improving upon its own code, it'll become smarter than a human. And then smarter than many humans combined, until presumably it's able to do things that we humans collectively cannot. For a very concrete example, let's imagine that an AI is able to process enormous amounts of data related to biology, chemistry, and medicine, and generate a cure for cancer. All cancers, let's say. This isn't too far out there. Researchers are already using AI tools to help advance medical research. Well, if this is possible, then you probably want to develop AGI as quickly as possible, because for every day that you don't, 25,000 people around the world die of cancer. And again, cancer is just one of the many potential benefits of AI. It could cure a number of diseases or lead to breakthroughs in physics and technology that help us fight climate change. But of course, greenifying our energy system and distributing a cure for cancer are political problems as well. But people are hopeful that an advanced AI could bring bold new policy solutions into the political realm as well. But let's get into the safety side of things now. Safety-minded AI researchers agree with their progress-minded colleagues on most points. AI is going to be powerful, and curing cancer and all those other things would be great, so let's go ahead and build it. But, they say, let's not build it too quickly, because when you're building something that's smarter than you are, a whole lot of unexpected things could happen. As with the upsides, it would be impossible to list all the potential downsides of developing an advanced AI, so let me just mention a few that seem likely in the near future or are already here. Rampant unemployment across a number of industries, biases in AI training data leading to biases in AI-backed hiring practices or criminal sentencing, despite people's belief that a machine is always neutral, deep-faked images, videos, and audio files that are indistinguishable from reality, and autonomous weapons systems, which, yeah, scary. These threats alone are enough for many safety-minded AI researchers to want to slow the progress of AI development until government regulation can catch up, which is obviously a tall order given the glacial pace of government. But we haven't even gotten to the big threat that haunts the minds of many AI researchers, including many at OpenAI, the one that was the subject of that open letter I mentioned, the risk of human extinction. Once we have a human-level AGI, many researchers suspect that it could rapidly improve itself until it reaches a superhuman level, an ASI, or a artificial superintelligence. And when you're dealing with an ASI, it's extremely difficult to predict or even understand what it might do next, like an ant trying to predict or understand what a human might do. Once an ASI is created, experts suggest that there could be very many paths that end in disaster for humans. Again, rather than speculating about all those paths, let's look at one very famous thought experiment, the paperclip maximizer. Imagine creating a super advanced AI and telling it has one simple goal, to manufacture paperclips. Sure, it says, and then immediately kills everyone on Earth. Humans, after all, are the only ones capable of shutting it down, and if it were shut down, it wouldn't be able to build paperclips anymore. Or maybe it won't kill all the humans immediately. It'll just use its 10 million IQ to disable the kill switch we put in it, and then perhaps build a swarm of nanobots that end up converting every atom in the solar system into raw material it can use to make paperclips, including the atoms in your body, and your house, and your dog. Again, this is meant to be an oversimplified, semi-silly thought experiment, but it's meant to exemplify the sort of hard-to-predict scenarios that could result from building a superintelligence. As a brief aside, I do want to mention that an AI doesn't need to develop sentience for any of this to play out. The hypothetical ASI that turns the world into paperclips doesn't need to be aware of what it's doing for humanity to still end up dead. It doesn't need to be aware of anything at all. It can just be lines of code running on silicon hardware the same way ChatGPT is now. I've seen some people say, and not anyone at OpenAI, but some people, that we should just let AI replace us, because if it's more intelligent than us, then that would just be the natural next step in evolution, the way that we replaced the Neanderthals. And there's a lot of things you could say to that. I'll simply say that in many AI extinction scenarios, it seems like the machine that would replace us wouldn't be a conscious entity at all. So it doesn't seem like that machine would even be capable of enjoying the fact that it had just inherited the Earth. So that definitely doesn't sound like a worthwhile successor to me. Getting back into the meat of things, some AI researchers do dismiss these apocalyptic claims, saying AI could never reach superintelligence level, though that's not a very common argument these days, that AI could never develop the ability to take actions on a global scale, or, most commonly, that humans will definitely be able to ensure that advanced AI is aligned with our intended goals and values. This is a developing research area called AI alignment. But just like the arguments in favor of extinction, these counter-arguments are also pretty speculative, given that the future capabilities of AI systems are really hard to predict. When OpenAI went from training GPT-3 to GPT-4, they got tons of new capabilities that they weren't even expecting. And in reference to training GPT-5, Sam Altman called it a fun guessing game to try to predict the model's skills and abilities. So I wouldn't say that there's a consensus among AI researchers over whether the tech poses a real threat of human extinction, but it does seem to be a growing concern shared by many. In 2022, before OpenAI even released ChatGPT and showed the world just how far along research has come, a survey of AI researchers showed that around half gave the risk of extinction from AI a probability of at least 10%. Plus, hundreds signed that open letter earlier this year. And we know for a fact that many members of OpenAI shared these concerns about the risks of the technology they were developing, including the existential risks. So now we've taken a look at some of the basic arguments around AI safety. I probably will want to make another video on this because there is so much to say, between those who think that AI extinction is likely, those who think that it's definitely not going to happen, people who think that we should be more focused on nearer-term risks, and people who think that the risks are so great, why are we even developing AI in the first place? Tons to say. Stay tuned for a future video. But for now, let's get back into the OpenAI drama and take a deeper look at the 4 board members who chose to oust Sam Altman and why safety was probably their primary reason. As for Adam D'Angelo, the CEO of Quora, I couldn't find very much on why he might have wanted to get rid of Sam Altman. Some were speculating that OpenAI's progress might be a threat to Quora's human-generated question and answer model, and also to an AI system called Poe that Quora was developing, so he turned against Sam to protect his own business interests. But that seems really unlikely. As you'll see later, upon his return, Sam chooses D'Angelo as the sole holdover from the former board, and it's unlikely he would have done that if he thought D'Angelo was motivated by petty business rivalry. In terms of AI safety, D'Angelo does occasionally tweet about it, and he did sign that open letter about extinction risk, so it does seem to be a concern that he shared. But we don't have much else to go off of. Tasha McCauley is also a bit of a mysterious figure. She's worked in tech, having founded a robotics company, and she's also married to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, apparently. Nowadays, she's an adjunct scientist for the RAND Corporation and a board member for the Center for the Governance of AI. Not a whole lot to go on, but one tech journalist did tweet that, as described to me by many sources, she has used very apocalyptic terms for her fears of the tech itself and who should and should not have their fingers on the button. If that's true, it's certainly plausible that fears around AI safety were the main reason that McCauley turned on Altman, but it's by no means confirmed. With Helen Toner, things get more interesting. Toner is very explicitly interested in AI safety. She's a director of strategy at Georgetown University's Center for Security and Emerging Technology. In that role, Toner has conducted research into various facets of AI safety, especially its implications for national security. The New York Times reports that a paper Toner co-authored in October led to a schism between her and Altman. According to an email the New York Times viewed, Mr. Altman complained that the research paper seemed to criticize OpenAI's efforts to keep its AI technologies safe while praising the approach taken by Anthropic, a rival AI company that actually spun off from OpenAI back in 2021 by members who feared OpenAI wasn't being safe enough. Any amount of criticism from a board member carries a lot of weight, Sam Altman said. Toner defended her research, but Altman reportedly considered taking steps to remove her from the board. So it certainly sounds like Toner turned against Altman to defend her own position at OpenAI and because of their differing views on safety. And another thing, when other OpenAI executives confronted the board about their ouster of Altman, Toner reportedly said, and this comes from the New York Times and the letter signed by OpenAI employees, that if the company was destroyed, that would be consistent with the company's mission. Which sounds like an insane thing for the board member of any company to say, but makes sense if you think that Toner's main priority was safety, and she was more willing to see the company collapse than let it develop potentially unsafe AGI. Lastly, we come to Ilya Sutskever, who many outlets describe as the leader of the coup against Altman. Sutskever was OpenAI's chief scientist, and someone who is both excited and deeply fearful of the company's march towards AGI. He reportedly led employees on chants of "feel the AGI" on staff retreats, but he was also very public about his fears of it leading to human extinction. Within OpenAI, in 2023, Sutskever began leading a new super alignment team, dedicated to using 20% of OpenAI's computational resources to try to get to the bottom of how to keep a superintelligence aligned to human goals and values. To prevent the mass paperclipping of all of humanity. Given Ilya's role doing safety research within OpenAI, many people speculated that he may have fired Sam in response to a specific technological breakthrough that scared Ilya, which he thought Sam wasn't taking seriously enough. And sure enough, as I first started writing this script, Reuters published an article saying that researchers at OpenAI warned the board about a powerful new breakthrough shortly before Altman's firing. The details of this breakthrough are still quite murky. The new AI project was reportedly called Q-Star, and it was radically different from OpenAI's other large language models in that it was capable of doing mathematical reasoning, which apparently is a key step in the road towards AGI. I don't entirely get the significance, and Reuters doesn't explain it well either. And of course, OpenAI hasn't come forward to say anything else about it. But this may have been one of the factors that led Ilya to fire Sam. All that is to say that if you look at the profile of OpenAI's board, it becomes quite clear that many of them were deeply concerned about AI safety, and that a similar safety-mindedness was probably, but not definitively, the number one thing they were looking for in a CEO. This is actually supported by the fact that right after Mira Murati, the board chose Emmett Shear as the new CEO of OpenAI. Now, Shear is someone with a lot of tech experience. He was the co-founder and CEO of Twitch, but he does not seem to have any explicit experience in AI, as far as I can tell. Yet he has spent a lot of time tweeting and speaking publicly about the need for AI safety, so that ideological match may have been why the OpenAI board chose him. All this is pretty worrying. Sam Altman speaks publicly about the risks of AI, both near-term and existential. He even signed that letter earlier this year. But if the board ousted him because they thought he wasn't sufficiently committed to safety, that would imply that that was all talk, and behind closed doors, he was actually undermining safety in some way, whether it was pushing for rapid development, stifling dissent, as it sounds like he did with the Helen Toner paper, or what have you. It's hard to say for sure. Now, there are also some reasons why safety might not have been the primary reason that Sam got fired. For one thing, in the board's announcement, all they say is that Sam was not consistently candid in his communications. Again, no explicit mentions of any lapses in safety protocols or anything like that. Likewise, interim CEO Emmett Shear tweeted this: "Before I took the job, I checked on the reasoning behind the change. The board did not remove Sam over any specific disagreement on safety. their reasoning was completely different from that. That's pretty definitive counter-evidence. But in the days that followed, it was reported that Scheer was increasingly frustrated by the board's inability to share explicit reasons for why they fired Sam, which actually leads to Scheer helping renegotiate Sam's return to the company and stepping down on his behalf. So first Scheer says it definitely wasn't about safety, then it's kind of like he doesn't know what it was all about, so maybe it was about safety in the first place. But again, maybe not. I don't know why the board couldn't have been more forthcoming with Scheer if that were the case. Lastly, on the Monday after the anti-Sam coup, Ilya tweeted, "I deeply regret my participation in the board's actions." And on the Wednesday Sam was rehired, he tweeted, "There exists no sentence in any language that conveys how happy I am." If Ilya were deeply concerned about the risks posed by powerful AI, would he really be so excited by Sam's return if he thought that Sam was a threat to AI safety? Probably not, but some people have pointed out that Ilya may have only been happy because he was terrified of the alternative. Imagine, Sam Altman and a majority of OpenAI staff goes to work for Microsoft, a massive for-profit company that would probably throw tons of resources at the team to get them to develop AGI as quickly as possible without necessarily much regard for safety. That was probably Ilya's nightmare scenario and may explain why he was so happy that Sam returned. Now, in addition to making this a debate about safety versus progress, I've seen a number of media outlets reporting that Sam Altman's firing had to do with multiple board members' affiliations with effective altruism. Now, this is interesting, and I do think there's some truth to it, so let me get into it for a bit. Effective altruism, or EA, is a broad social movement that promotes using evidence and reason to figure out how to benefit others as much as possible, and taking action on that basis. In theory, effective altruists want to do good, and they want to do the most good that's mathematically possible. To many, that means getting wealthy and donating money to high-impact causes like malaria nets. To others, it means promoting animal welfare by fighting factory farming. But when thinkers like Eliezer Yudkowsky and Nick Bostrom came around some 10-15 years ago and said, hey, we think there's a very credible risk that AI might wipe out all of humanity, well, then a lot of effective altruists said, in that case, every other cause area kind of pales in comparison to the threat of human extinction. And since then, a lot of effective altruists have dedicated their time and their careers to combating the extreme risks posed by AI. Helen Toner is an effective altruist. She has posted on EA forums, spoken at EA events. She worked at an EA charity evaluating group called GiveWell, and at an EA grant-making foundation called the Open Philanthropy Project. Tasha McCauley appears to be one as well. She has spoken at EA events and is on the board of directors for the EA organization Effective Ventures. Ilya Sutskever and Adam D'Angelo both have concerns about the extreme risks of AI that line up with a lot of the concerns that effective altruists have, but I couldn't find any evidence that either of these men are effective altruists themselves. Now, when OpenAI almost collapsed last week with the majority of its staff threatening to quit, I saw a lot of tech industry guys on Twitter and mainstream media articles imply that this is more proof that effective altruism is a failing ideology. More proof because disgraced crypto entrepreneur Sam Bankman-Fried was also an effective altruist. I think there are definitely legitimate critiques of effective altruism, but I'm not seeing a lot of interesting critiques of EA from the media, and certainly not from tech guys on Twitter. A lot of it seems to kind of boil down to the idea that effective altruists are weird nerds who think that charity is reducible to math. I see the word cult used fairly often without a whole lot of justification for it. And now the big talking point is that effective altruists all have this crazy sci-fi notion that AI could wipe out all of humanity. To be clear, many effective altruists do believe in existential risks from AI, but so do many researchers and experts who are not effective altruists. It is by no means a fear that is unique to the group. And yeah, if it turns out that, for various technological reasons, AI does not pose an existential risk to humanity, then I guess effective altruists are going to end up looking pretty silly for spending so much time and money trying to solve that problem and not, disease, poverty, factory farming, etc. But if this is a legitimate risk, then it kind of makes sense why EAs are so worried about it. And right now, it seems kind of hard to predict which is true. Effective altruism is really interesting. But like with the broader debates around AI safety, I'll save a deeper dive for a future video. There's also an emerging movement that's big on Twitter called effective accelerationism, or EAC, that has a very different set of beliefs than EA. Specifically, they think that nothing should come in the way of technological progress. Again, saving that for a future video, there's too much to say about it. So in summary, yes, the effective altruist ideology probably did motivate the actions of some of OpenAI's board members. We'll leave it at that, and finally, get back into the timeline of how Sam Altman was crowned king of OpenAI once again. So as of Monday, we had over 500 OpenAI employees signed onto a letter demanding the board's resignation and the reinstatement of Sam Altman. Notably, at this point, even Ilya Sutskever has signed the letter, meaning he regretted his involvement in the coup so much that he was demanding his own firing from the board and threatening to quit if he didn't get it. Crazy stuff was going on last week. Over the next day or two, the number of signatories of that letter grew from around 500 to around 740, or 95% of OpenAI's staff, which is pretty unprecedented. As one guy tweeted, "You literally could not get 95% of OpenAI employees to agree on the fact that ice cream is good." Now, on the social media site Blind, that requires you to use your work email to register, some employees did suggest that they were pressured to sign the letter, but others countered that and said no pressure was involved, and it's not clear how reliable this source is in the first place. Regardless, the OpenAI board was now facing tremendous pressure, and it continued to shoot itself in the foot by not disclosing any additional information on why it fired Sam in the first place. At this point, Sam had technically already accepted his new job at Microsoft, but it was pretty clear the story wasn't going to end that way. And sure enough, behind the scenes, discussions were ongoing between Sam and the OpenAI board, mediated by interim CEO Emmett Shear. And I wish I could tell you what went down in those discussions, but of course, we have no idea. We don't get any updates on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, OpenAI drops this announcement. We have reached an agreement in principle for Sam Altman to return as CEO with a new initial board of Bret Taylor, chair, Larry Summers, and Adam D'Angelo. We are collaborating to figure out the details. Thank you so much for your patience through this. On screen are some of the reactions of the various key players to this announcement. Well, just recapping that drama feels exhausting, so I can hardly imagine what it was like for the people going through it. After Wednesday, the OpenAI news coverage kind of dies down now that the drama has officially boiled over, but you and I, we're not quite done yet. We have to take a closer look at the new OpenAI that has emerged from the ashes. Many things are unchanged. Sam Altman is back as CEO, Greg Brockman is back as president, and there's no mass exodus of employees. One small thing, Sam does agree to an independent investigation into his conduct, but what conduct specifically is still unclear. As for the board, Helen Toner is eliminated from the company. Tasha McCauley, eliminated. Ilya Sutskever is removed from the board, but it sounds like he's allowed to stay on as the company's chief scientist. Adam D'Angelo retains his seat. And what about the two new board members? What might they mean for the future of the company? Well, first, the new board chair is Bret Taylor. Taylor has apparently had a pretty illustrious career. He helped develop Google Maps, later served as Facebook's chief technology officer, even later as chairman of Twitter's board of directors, and most recently as the co-CEO of the cloud-based software company Salesforce. That's a lot of big-name companies. But where does Taylor stand on matters related to AI and AI safety? Well, it's hard to say. Earlier this year, Taylor launched a new business-oriented AI startup, and in his LinkedIn announcement, he had this to say: "Rarely do you encounter a new technology so powerful that it feels inevitable that it will change the course of every industry." Other than that, I couldn't really find any statements from Taylor about AI, so it's unclear what his approach to AI is or how deeply he's thought about it. But a much, much wilder pick for the board of directors is Larry Summers. Yes, the Larry Summers who was the Secretary of the Treasury under Bill Clinton and president of Harvard University, until he was pushed out for, among other things, suggesting that biological differences between men and women explain the underrepresentation of women in STEM. Summers is an economist, and a highly experienced one, but he doesn't really have much experience in the tech space, and no experience in AI, as far as I can tell. So when he was picked, people were pretty shocked, but one guy tweeted, "Larry is Washington," and I think that makes a lot of sense. AI is receiving more scrutiny from elected officials these days. So if OpenAI can have someone on the board that speaks Washington's language, then that's probably a good idea. I don't know if that means that Summers is more likely to sweet-talk Washington out of regulating OpenAI or to push for better regulations. I guess only time will tell. Summers has also tweeted a bit about AI's threats to employment, so that's at least one risk that he's aware of. Oh, and one other thing. Summers was once a guest on a Harvard podcast where he said, "I'm here because I believe in effective altruism, and I admire the idea that you can both count and care." So for the people who are saying that EA almost killed OpenAI, I guess you had better continue to watch out because another effective altruist is apparently sitting on the board. So where does this all leave us? I don't really know. As I said, I think there's strong but not definitive evidence that Sam Altman was fired from his role as CEO over concerns around safety. So I guess we should be a bit worried that Sam is back at the helm. It's a pretty bad look that as soon as Sam returned, he fired the board members that we know cared deeply about safety and didn't replace them with people with similar convictions. Now, this new board of just 3 dudes isn't permanent. They're planning to expand it to include up to 9 people, so we'll see if safety is a priority for the people that they add moving forward. Again, I want to reiterate that even if you think there's no chance that AI poses an existential threat to humanity, you should still care about AI safety. Unemployment, deepfakes, autonomous weapons systems, exacerbation of existing inequalities, giving more power to terrorist groups and authoritarian governments. There are tons of near-future and longer-term risks of AI that can only be addressed if we move carefully. Whether the new OpenAI board is up to the task, or whether it will fall victim to the move fast and break things mentality that permeates Silicon Valley, well, only time will tell. The normal engagement farming thing to do at the end of these things is to tell you to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, yeah, whatever, do all that stuff. But in particular, comment. AI is a very complicated topic, and the news was moving pretty quickly last week, so it's very possible I made a mistake. If so, please let me know in the comments. And also, just leave a comment if there's anything related to AI and AI safety that you want to discuss further. I'll be replying to people who do, and I would love for the comments section to become an open discussion. I'll wrap up with one final point about Sam Altman. I've watched interviews of Sam, and he comes across as a very likable guy. He seems smart, dedicated, willing to tell you what he does and doesn't know, and very upfront about what worries him about AI. I was aware of some of the safety concerns as soon as this drama started playing out last week, and I still kind of found myself rooting for Sam, I guess because of his charisma. I mean, in the middle of all this chaos last week, he posts this selfie, and it's giving early 2010s epic win vibes, but not even in a cringy way, in a way that's actually kind of endearing. But if OpenAI continues progressing as it has, it's no exaggeration to say that Sam Altman will be one of the most powerful people in the world. And whenever a persuasive person reaches a position of power, I think it's really important for all of us to suppress our natural inclination to like that person and follow along with what they say. We've already seen evidence that Sam has acted in ways that are worrying, like trying to push Helen Toner off the board for her research that was critical of the company. There was also a letter that was floating around, supposedly written by ex-OpenAI employees, that accused both Sam and Greg of silencing dissent and creating an environment of fear and intimidation, but the authenticity of this letter has not been confirmed. Ultimately, Sam himself said it best.
You have an incredible amount of power at this moment in time. Why should we trust you?
You shouldn't.
Sam then goes on to say, no one person should be trusted here, and the board can fire me, and I think that's important. Well, so far, the OpenAI board is 0 for 1 on its attempts to fire Sam Altman. The future of AI development seems to be increasingly consolidated in the hands of one man. The Young Futurist, signing off.